hear something in the background a little bit. Is that?
Is that you mean on my end? That could be the
Might
television.
be. Oh, might be. It's okay. It's very faint. But if you
Yeah,
can.
it's not that bad.
Okay.
Okay. It's the ball game, the Yankees and the Red Sox.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was watching.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Okay, and I'll share this out to...
Okay, and do you want to take just a minute, Paul, and share, if you go to the Facebook page and share it out to your own, maybe your campaign page,
Yes,
if you want.
can I do that now?
Yes, you can do it now.
Well, I'm technologically
That's quite all right.
below the middle of the curve, so should I just go straight to Facebook?
Yep,
Well, I'm on Facebook.
Yep. Okay. So if you go to either to candidates with a contract or CFAR, the Facebook
How
page.
do I do that from what I'm looking at now?
Just type it in the search bar.
Okay. So I can just put CWC in there.
Type out CFAR.
CFAR.
Yep. CFAR.
Yeah.
And it should take you to the Facebook page.
All right. Let's see if we get that. Okay. Yeah. The official site, CFAR.
Okay. So you should be able to scroll down and see us live there. You'll see yourself
On the site. Okay. Let me see.
On the Facebook. And if this.
I'm on the web page. Was I supposed to be on the CFAR?
On the
page?
On the Facebook
actually on the Facebook
Oh,
page.
yeah, I'm on the web page.
Okay.
So I've got to get back to.
That's okay.
Let's see. I've got to get back to.
Yeah, just go to Facebook and in the main Facebook search bar, just type in.
CFAR.
Yep.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, and
now
then
you should be able to see us at the bottom of the page, huh?
or somewhere if you just scroll down, you'll find us.
I see 3 things for CFAR, but no picture.
Okay, well, you know what you can also do is you could share it later.
Oh, here's live.
Okay, you found it. Good.
There you go.
Okay.
CFAR.
And then just go down in the bottom right corner of that window, and there should be a share button there.
Should be a share button, right?
Oh, in the bottom of that box?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
No, there's just the picture with the arrow to get the feed going, but nothing about sharing. There's nothing at the bottom of the box.
Okay, hang on a sec. Should be. Hang on.
Yeah, I see the 3 of us on there, but
okay.
Now I can share it.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. So, to whom do I want to share it? To
I would just share it
to your own Facebook page, right?
Okay.
Yep.
Share to a page.
Mm-hmm.
It's thinking. Mm-hmm. Okay, Knupp for Congress. That's what I want. Posting is Knupp for Congress. I'm just going to say post, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And that way, it might be too distracting while we're live, but if you're able to and you see any comments in the chat there, then you could answer questions if anybody.
Oh, yes. The only thing is I'm not looking at both at the
yeah, that's
same
okay.
time. I'm just looking at us.
It's a little complicated to do that. So, okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. We are here with Paul Knupp, a Green Party candidate in Iowa's 3rd District. And Paul has signed both Contract for American Renewal and Candidates with a Contract. And I will let you go ahead and introduce yourself. Maybe talk a little bit about your background and how you got into politics.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. My name, with all my titles, is Reverend Dr. Paul Knupp. And I'm a Reverend because I'm ordained in the United Church of Christ. And I have a church right now in Gladbrook, Iowa, outside of Marshalltown. And the doctor comes from a doctorate I received at Drake University in leadership. So that's kind of my educational background. Mm-hmm. And I came to Iowa to work in churches, which I have. I've worked in 13 churches here in Iowa, different denominations, not all the same. And I've really enjoyed it. I really enjoy rural Iowa. And I'm a transplant from Youngstown, Ohio, but I moved here 40 years ago to work in a church, and I never left.
Wow.
And that's how much I like Iowa. I love Iowa. So I'm not going anywhere. My kids have been born here, and we just really enjoy the whole culture of Iowa and geography and all of the events that go on here. So I got into politics when I was in high school. I had an avid interest. You got to remember that I went to high school in the 60s and graduated in 70s. So in 68, we had a huge political turmoil in this country. The candidates that were kind of off ballot were Eugene McCarthy, that was my favorite, and then eventually Robert Kennedy. And I was part of the kind of the hippies that protested outside of the convention hall in Chicago, and Mayor Daley turned all the police loose on everybody and had everybody beaten and jailed for protesting at his convention. So that's my backdrop was, and that was a Democratic convention. So originally I was not a big fan of the Democratic Party because of the stormtrooper tactics and violence that they perpetrated against young people. And Republicans were just as bad because of Governor Rhodes had four of my fellow Ohioans shot dead at Kent State. That was in my senior year of high school.
Wow.
And that was only a few miles from where I grew up, Kent.
Wow.
So those kind of backdrop, those things happening, and then Martin Luther King was killed, and that was a big turmoil all over the country. People that weren't alive didn't realize how the tension between black and white was just exacerbated. And I had some good friends that were black in school that saved me from getting beaten. They were just some of the black students were just beating white students just to take out their frustration, which I could understand, but of course I didn't want to get a beating. And so my friend Dr. Block saved me from that situation. So that was the political world I was living in the late 60s, early 70s. And then, of course, Nixon came along, and that was a whole other story. But I wanted to put my 2 cents in. So I started getting involved in politics back then. And originally, we didn't have the vote. 18-year-olds didn't have the vote. And that was passed not too long after that. And so we got the vote, and that made a big difference. And so I always wanted to run for office myself, but I never I got around to on a lesser level. I ran for school board a couple times and state representative once, but I just never punched my way through, never was popular enough to win. And so when this opportunity came up to run for Congress, I jumped at the chance because that's kind of my ultimate dream would be to win and go to Congress. And the Green Party is my home. It always really has been. In 1984, I helped start the Green Party in Iowa City. I wrote to Petra Kelly in Germany, who had started the party there. And she wrote me back and sent me a whole bunch of materials. So I put an ad in a newspaper and asked people to come to the First Christian Church in Iowa City, and we'd have a meeting about the Green Party. And about 50 people showed up, so it was well received. And we got the party going after that. In fact, we had a meeting with about 100 people at the Mill. I don't know if you know the Mill restaurant in Iowa City, but they have a huge room there to just come in. They usually use for entertainment. And so we had a meeting there, and we filled it. There was 100 of us. But the problem was that my fellow Green members didn't want to run people for office. They just wanted to be an environmental advocate voice in the mix. And so we tested the water in Iowa City, which failed, by the way. And that's pretty much the extent of what they wanted to do. So I left, and joined the socialists because they were more interested in running people for office. But I didn't last very long there either. So when I moved to Des Moines from Iowa City, I became the chair of the Green Party in Polk County for a while. And then, so my going back to the Green Party now feels natural to me. I like the Green Party. I love the Green Party. And in fact, it's so important to me. I named my youngest daughter Petra after Petra Kelly. So
very cool.
And she likes her name, so that's a coup in itself. Most kids don't, but she does. So that's good. So that's kind of where I am right now. There aren't any green candidates or green Congress people, but I'd like to be the first. I think that'd be great for Iowa. The first green congressperson to Congress. I think that would be wonderful.
Wow. Paul Wellstone, where was he from? It was out Midwest, but I don't remember. Is that? Yeah, I don't remember the history, the story of his run. Am I confusing? Wait, Brian, correct me here. Where was Paul Wellstone?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I think he was out west, but I can't remember exactly where.
Okay.
I think he was either Minnesota or Wisconsin.
Yeah, okay, because it was...
In fact, another guy that was running, Pete D'Alessandro, that was running for the Democratic nomination for this seat, worked for
Minnesota. Okay.
Yeah, Minnesota.
Minnesota, because that was Al Franken's... Is that the same district?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right, Kelly.
Oh, I did not know that he graduated from UNC, Chapel Hill. That's where I am, right by UNC. I'm in a very blue pocket of North Carolina. So, wow, it's really fascinating to hear all of that and where you got started in politics. We're born in the early 70s, so a little after that. But I wonder how you having seen all of that and been through all of that, how does it seem now when you see what happened? Was it almost like a repeat of some of it in 2016?
Yes, I think that, for instance, everything going on with Kavanaugh is pretty much a repeat of the same tension and confrontation between parties, and that's too bad. Because the one thing when Martin Luther King was killed, murdered, and Robert Kennedy so close together, that took a big toll on a lot of us. It really soured us, not only on politics, but on life, a positive view of life. So I fought my way back to a positive view of life. I've lived long enough to do that, and I'm happy about that. But it was not an easy time. It was very devastating for a lot of people.
You wonder why people settled back into some complacency. Why that happened. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think that's what happened. There's a lot of people just said, well, the hippies to begin with, which I was one, weren't that interested in politics to begin with. It was kind of like, let's get back to the land. Let's get back to nature. Let's enjoy life the way it was meant in its simplicity, and be peaceful and loving, and make our society as such. But the political avenues were not really the hippies' choice. Jerry Rubin and some of the other characters, Tom, who was Jane Fonda's husband? Tom. I can't think of his name. But the leaders of the hippie movement eventually got into politics because they could see that if anything was going to change, that was the only way to do it. Right. So I appreciate that. I think they were right. But it was kind of like we were starting in a hole to begin with. Right. And then events that happened just kind of really pushed us down. Our consciousness. And we did become complacent and really kind of withdrew, I would say. And a lot of people became part of that so-called silent majority that other people were quoting or counting on or referring to. But it wasn't the same kind of silence. It was more like a silence of I'm really hurt and pissed off and just leave me alone. That was that kind of silence.
Right. Well, when you have things happen, like, I mean, we've seen this in 2016, everything that the Democratic Party did to sort of try to black out Bernie Sanders to work against him. And, you had so many people that were inspired to join his campaign and inspired to, I mean, I was in Philly DNC week, and, I remember hearing these Bernie delegates I remember several crying in the bathroom. And they said, I spent every bit of money I had. Some, came all the way from the West Coast or wherever. And I can't believe this is happening, And so I think the result is kind of mixed. We've got some people that are pissed off and fighting. And then a lot of people just, I think, it's just apathy. They think, oh, well, we can't change it. And so that's really the biggest problem, I think. And it continues to be so many people don't vote. I always like to look at numbers and for the districts, and let's see. Oh, I don't think I had a total number of the population of your district. That's odd. Usually Ballotpedia adds in the census data here. But I wonder if you happen to know anything about voter turnout in your district, or what's your sense of that? Do you feel like people are engaged, or a lot of people not voting?
I think this time there will be a bigger turnout. I'm trying to think how many votes Mr. Maurer got last time as he ran for Congress. David Young. I know David Young, I think, got about 147,000, and Maurer got less than that, of course, significantly less. But I think the Democrats are more motivated now to get out the vote. So I expect that to happen. They're trying to have the blue wave be the new thing, as you know. You and Brian know. And the blue wave is pretty much female candidates. Let's get the female Democrats.
For the most part.
That's fine, but I don't know how far that aspect of it's going to carry. I really don't.
Well,
that's hard to predict.
Yeah,
not if they stick to the same message. I think that's the problem. They're really not changing their message, and that's why I myself have joined the Green Party. I'm actually a council member for my local Green Party.
Good for you, Brian. Was that Brian?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah. Good for you, Brian. That's the thing, and that's why I switched. I asked for help in the Democratic Party, and I didn't get any. I even offered to pay, and I didn't get any. So I finally thought they don't really want this old white man as a candidate. So I thought I'm going back to the Green, where I feel at home. So
it probably has more to do with your platform, but that you might actually fight for some things they don't really want you to do. Well, I'm not a member of Green Party, but my first vote was for Ralph Nader.
Oh, there you go. That was Green.
Yeah. I was 29. I didn't vote till I was 29. I was determined to be an informed voter, so I didn't. I'm actually kind of proud to be able to say I never voted for Clinton, but Bill Clinton, that is. But I supported Obama twice, and I actually voted for John Kerry, although I think I was just kind of not paying attention at that point. But and then this time I did vote for Jill Stein. I was not going to toe the line out of fear. I think that's really something the Democratic establishment is still trying to hammer home, is this, like, blaming the people, the 3% that voted for Jill Stein, even though that's been proven it wasn't a Nader effect. But they're just trying to blame Susan Sarandon, blame everything, but their own message.
Yes, it's a blame game.
Yeah. Yep. So I really like Thomas Frank, and recently posted a couple of things of his video clips of his, which I think kind of stirred a bit of controversy on the Facebook page. The people that don't want to hear what he's saying, which is that the Democratic Party largely left the working class, specifically the white working class, behind.
Damn straight they did. Yep.
That's it.
they've become the party of, the elite, and they're for
Hollywood.
Wall Street,
Yep.
and
Yep.
military spending. And I think if you think that it's just supporting women's rights and all of these things, I think you have to dig a little deeper. But
Yes.
that being said, we had a lot of really great Democratic candidates that had signed CFAR and CWAC, and we talked to a lot of them. But in every case, they were up against an establishment candidate, and they experienced total media blackout, being totally ignored. And in some cases, the DCCC comes in, and all the money's given to the establishment candidate. And it's pretty clear, like that recording of, why do I always forget his name? Levi Tilleman and Steny Hoyer. That's it. The recording where, did you hear that? There was a recording.
I can't think of what that is.
It came out, I think, in the Intercept, but it was a recording where he is talking to Steny Hoyer, and he's saying, basically, or Steny Hoyer tells this progressive candidate that, look, we have this selection process, and basically, like, you don't have a shot, and this is how it works. So I'm paraphrasing, of course, here, but so that's frustrating to see that, and I wonder if more candidates, that's the big debate now, is can the Democratic Party be reformed from within? And there are still people trying to do that. But as we see over and over and over again, the most recent being Ocasio-Cortez and Andrew Gillum, they had this, strong progressive message, and then all of a sudden they start bending what they're saying from Medicare for all to all of a sudden it's access to affordable health care.
It gets watered down.
Yes. Yep. Right. And it's just, to me, when I see that, it just shows that the Democratic Party is still, they're hoping for enough anti-Trump
That's right.
movement to push that blue wave. And it just seems to me they're still not really offering anything to people. But so I noticed, let's see, your district is, there's a great little tool here, Cook. Hang on just a second. I think it had it was like R+1. Each district on Ballotpedia will kind of tell you, and we've had a couple the last 2 nights. We've had an independent and a green that were in Tennessee and Utah, very red districts, like R+24 or something.
Right. We're pretty much an R+ all the way across the district. That's true.
Right. Now, do you feel like when you're talking to people out in your community, what would you say? I mean, do you feel like they really are, they're socially conservative, or is it an anti-establishment feel, or what, or a little bit of both? What are you hearing from people? And are they?
Yeah, actually, it's a little bit of both. When I go out to the rural counties and I meet people there and talk to them, they're pretty much, especially most of the males, are interested in their hunting and keeping their guns for hunting. And they're really afraid that liberals are going to take their guns away. And in the more urban areas, which I happen to live in Des Moines, and so it's Polk County and Dallas County, it's much more, there are more radical voices in the urban areas than in the rural areas.
Right.
So there is kind of a city, urban, rural split in Iowa, and that's been attested to even in the voting. When people track the voting, they see the same thing.
Right.
There have been candidates that might win Des Moines, which is the biggest city in Iowa, but they can't carry countryside, and so they lose. So that's the issue we're always dealing with in Iowa, is that. But I have to say, I've met some of my friends in the Green Party that live in rural Iowa that are very progressive, and very dedicated to progressive values. So I don't want to paint it with such a broad brush that it's everybody
Right.
In rural or urban settings that are that way. It just
Right.
tends to be predominantly that way.
Right, right. And we have a huge problem with that, painting every group with a brush in a certain way. That's what the media, profits from doing that. Keep
Yes.
everyone divided. Now, okay, so
Yes.
you mentioned guns. That's a huge controversial topic. Do you care to speak on that? What do you think?
Sure.
Being in.
I was just in a seminar today from. I'm a member of Moms Demand Action,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the anti-gun lobby.
Right.
It's a national group, and we had a webinar today with a speaker from the East Coast, and he was a lawyer, and he spoke about domestic violence
Mm-hmm.
and gun violence, and he spoke about the tragedy of mass killing and gun violence. So those were our two topics today, and I understand where we are, and I think I do, and where we want to go. I have nothing against hunting. People that want to hunt, that's fine, but you don't use an assault rifle for hunting.
Right.
That's an example.
Mm-hmm.
So we need background checks to cover every place that somebody could buy a gun, and every venue that somebody could buy a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And we need domestic violence laws, since so many people are killed in domestic violence situations with guns.
Mm-hmm.
We need to really strengthen the laws as regards that, where people have to turn in the guns that they own if they are involved in a domestic violence dispute or litigation. Because what happens is people might be in domestic violence or arrested for that, and they're told, well, you can't buy any guns. Well, that's fine, but they've got a bunch of them at home. They can just go home and get them. There's no law against that. There's nothing to force people to turn in their weapons if they're in a situation that might spark the use of guns. So that's another example. And those are the kind of things, what we are in Moms Demand Action is common sense gun laws. I mean, they should just make sense to anybody. You shouldn't be able to buy an assault rifle as a teenager and go into a school in Florida and just shoot up the place. Hey, that's ridiculous. So things like that. And the bump stock that the guy used out in Nevada to shoot the crowd up. There's other things like that that we can put a limit on that will protect all of us in a much better way. Because what happens is we're the biggest gun violence country in the world, of course, and by far, and industrial country. And our suicide rate has just ballooned in the last couple of years. And a lot of that is done with guns. Somebody who attempts suicide with a gun is 90% likely to kill him or herself. Whereas if they use some other means, it's almost the reverse. They're 90% likely to survive. So that's the kind of example. We want to have an impact on the health of Americans. So I think that's something we have to pay attention to and pass laws at the congressional level, and then offer them as examples to the state level so that the state can copy some of the things that we think will help assuage the problem.
I have to quote David Letterman here, because I don't know how anybody could bring humor to after some real tragic things, but I remember this quote of his. He said, why do we need these assault rifles? I mean, unless you've got Bigfoot at your bird feeder. And that's the way he put it. And it's like, exactly.
Sense, yeah. Unless you've got Bigfoot at your bird feeder.
Yeah, like, why do you possibly need that? There's also, I wish I had it in front of me, but there was a study done, some polling that really showed how much the left and the right do see eye to eye on the common sense gun law reforms.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so much, not on everything. I think it was, I can't remember which one it was. It might have been on the assault rifle ban or something. But, as far as the background checks and closing the gun show loopholes and all that, they're on the same page. So why can't we get any of this stuff passed?
That's exactly right, Kelly. You're right on it. That's what we want, those common sense gun laws. Well, we have the NRA pouring money in to Congress to keep that from ever happening. And our congressman here in Iowa, in the 3rd District, David Young, is one of their favorite people.
Okay.
And he gets a lot of money from the NRA, and he votes just the way they want. They want him to vote.
Right.
So, and that's what the problem is. It's a congressional problem, I think.
Right. Gee, it seems like a recurring theme wherever, whether it's health insurance or guns or money poured into the candidate. Gee, how does that always seem to be the same story on every issue, right?
Because that's right. And that's why people like me decide, well, I got to run. If I'm going to make a difference, I can't just sit and quiet or think about this and stew.
Right.
I've got to put my hat in the ring and see what I can do to make things better.
Right. Well, I think it's fantastic with all your stories from what you lived through as a teenager and everything. You have a lot of experience there. So, one of the things, I remember in 2016 and before that, the Green Party can't ever seem to get in on debates. What's going on locally there? Have you been able to break through in any of the local media, and have you been able to participate in any debates there?
When I was a Democrat, I did, but since I've become a Green candidate, no. I've been totally shut out of everything. The press doesn't contact me, has never even given me a call to see what I think, what's going on. Zero. So tomorrow we do have a debate in Marnie, Iowa, which only has 120 people. So it's on the rural issues that face Iowa. And I noticed that listed the speakers. I'm one of them, so I get to leave in the morning and go there. But Cindy Yaxney, the Democratic candidate, and David Young, our present congressperson, neither one are going to be there. So that's too bad. But that's not really a debate.
No, really. But that tells you a lot, doesn't it?
Sure.
They don't show up for the regular people. They show up for the...
The thing is, this is my take on it. They are afraid of our ideas because they know that our ideas actually work.
Oh, I think we're video.
Just look at Jill Stein's Green New Deal.
Oh, I think, hopefully it's, can you hear us, Paul?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, it's
okay, your video.
a little bit, but it's unstable.
It's okay. It sometimes does that in your video. You're frozen.
Should come back on here in a second.
Yeah, not in too funny a position. So there you are. Okay. Well, the thing is too. I do want to say that I mentioned we did have a lot of Democratic candidates, and they all really had a very similar message, too. And they were just still running as a Democrat. So yeah. But when you're running within that party, I think you're up against a lot. So let's see, what else? What are your other I guess main issues? Maybe why you signed a contract for American Renewal. I'm going to guess cutting military spending might be on your list.
Military spending. A new nuclear Trident sub costs $1 billion. So one less sub, we have a lot of money to spend on things that need to be addressed.
Right.
So that's I have nothing against the military nor the Pentagon or military budget, but it's just out of whack. It's way
right.
It is. I completely agree.
Right. So that's where a lot of money is wasted, I think.
Yep.
But the other thing is, I would like to see us have Medicare for all. I'm on Medicare now, so I'm the one candidate that can say, I get Medicare, so I know what's involved. We need to expand it to include eye care and dental care.
Absolutely.
But we need to provide it for everybody. So that's one big thing for me. And the rest is, I've kind of rounded it off now that I really want to solve. It occurred to me I really wanted to solve worldwide problems as well as local U.S. problems. So I would like us to address, as a Congress, world hunger, world poverty, and world homelessness. And a start here in the United States with addressing those three, but spread it out to the rest of the world. And I think we can solve all of those. I really do. Mm-hmm. And I would like us to have a universal basic income here in the United States for people. And I would like us to have all the food available that we can so that people don't have to be hungry, and all the clothing for free. It's kind of like a Sir Thomas More utopian view of what the government could do. Mm-hmm. And I think it could. And it could address a lot of our problems. And and people always say, well, where are you going to get the money? Well, like I said, the military budget's out of whack. And when Eisenhower was president, the top rate of income tax for the upper 1% was 90%. Right now, I think President Trump just lowered it down to 35. So we're not even close to what it used to be.
Right.
And there are a couple economists in the United States. One teaches at the University of Pittsburgh and one at the University of Heidelberg in Germany. Both of them think that a society is healthier when it taxes the rich at 90% as opposed to a lower rate. And their papers, they attempt to prove this. So I think they do a good job, and I think they're correct.
I completely agree.
Yeah, when you hear arguments against that, I just always think of how you look at someone like Jeff Bezos on Amazon. How is it that they become that obscenely wealthy in the first place? Are they paying their workers fairly? Is Walmart paying people well? Are they asking for food donations at Thanksgiving for their workers? So when I look at it, it seems to me like a lot of the super wealthy, they've ridden off the system in some way or another, indirectly. So that's why I think it seems fair. But
I agree with you, Kelly. My father, wise man, used to say to me, Paul, there's nobody that's rich that didn't get that way by stepping on somebody or taking advantage of somebody.
That's right.
That's impossible.
That's right.
So that's always stuck with me. Whether that's true or not, it always haunts me as a truth.
I always think of the Dr. Seuss story, Yertle the Turtle. Yeah. I don't know. That's just what comes to mind. So, you said you're a minister, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, would you say some way that influenced your, your views on the Green Party? How would you? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question because it does fit together. Finally, my theology and my politics all came together. My theology is basically, I'm a liberation theologian, which means that God is on the side of the poor and the oppressed and kind of opposes the comfortable and the stable and definitely the rich. That it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven. That kind of thing. So I got radicalized by the New Testament as well as politics. So then they kind of came together. And so my politics do reflect my theological viewpoints.
It's refreshing to hear because we've had so much, on the right, and I'm in the South, so you've got the evangelical, kind of. To me, a lot of the times it's more not preaching hate, but anti-gay stuff, and you hear so much. I don't know. I guess religion has gotten a bad name because of certain groups, so it's always good to hear something different.
Well, thank you. Yeah, because I agree with you, Kelly. Is that the right wing in Christianity has really given Christianity a bad name. And I don't agree with their point of view. And when we get in discussions, I tell them straight up that same thing. You're misinterpreting the gospel. Did you ever read Matthew chapter 25? I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was ill-clad and you gave me clothing. I was sick and in prison, and they need to understand there's a social aspect to the gospel they're ignoring. So they can't call that a full gospel. That's not a full gospel. They've got a little truncated version of what the gospel is. But now I'm preaching, Kelly, so I'll stop.
That's okay. Yeah, I think I'm trying to think how to best word this. Thomas Frank talks about how the Democratic Party has become the party of the elite, and he talks a lot about meritocracy and this idea that if you're poor, that's your own fault, and this has become sort of the mindset of the Democratic establishment. And I think one of the things that always struck me during 2016 was whenever Bernie would sort of talk about, the billionaires and all that. I think there's a class of people that probably are in the upper middle class that support the Democratic establishment, that I think they feel like that's a rhetoric against them, when it really wasn't. It was against the obscenely wealthy, the 1%. But I think there's that, it's an American mentality of like, oh, I can get there too. I can become, that well-to-do. But I think that it really sort of, Bernie in a lot of ways almost made that class warfare, I hate to say worse, but sort of pointed it out. And there was a big divide there between, upper middle class people, and that split there. Don't you think?
Yes, I think you're exactly right. It's vacillates between getting worse and getting better. So I think I blame Hillary Clinton though, when she ignored all the unions and the union workers, and then went to West Virginia and told them, "Oh, well, I'm not going to get you a new job. Well, I'll get you a new job, but it won't be in coal mining." Right. And then she talked about deplorables, and I don't remember what the other adjective was. Right. That's just ridiculous. I mean, she offended the middle class so greatly. It's lucky she got any votes. I think. So
I completely agree.
Were you going to say something?
Ignored most of Middle America with her campaign. She didn't campaign in any of the Middle America states at all. I mean, she completely ignored it and took their votes for granted, and wonders why she lost.
Right. I don't think it would have mattered though, and I want to just say it's not that Bernie made it worse. He was just speaking what was truth and what was reality, and that's why it resonated with everyone. But I think, Hillary, just things slip out, the basement dwellers, the deplorables, and that's just how she thinks. And I think, unfortunately, there is a segment of the Democratic establishment and people that support that it is kind of it's just a snobbery is what it is. It is. And I live in a very blue area that has a lot of that, so I'm around it a lot. But people that haven't really struggled very much, and I myself have experienced both, so I know. But a lot of people haven't, but this idea that Thomas Frank talks about, that it's because of their own, they did so well in school and they deserve all of this, and so somehow those deplorables, when the factories closed and the town is in ruins, somehow that's those people's fault. I don't know. Yeah,
it's an elitism. It's plagued the Democratic Party since Adlai Stevenson. So, it's nothing new, but it's getting worse.
It is getting worse. Oh, yeah. It's definitely getting worse.
And I think for some of us, as someone who voted for Obama twice, I think some of us just weren't aware. We sort of fell for the rhetoric that, that they put out. And so until you really start paying attention and realizing that, no, what they're actually doing is a lot of, Bill Clinton passed a lot of Republican ideas. So
yes, he did.
People don't realize that.
Yes, he did. Yeah, so, as a third-way Democrat, he passed a lot of very right-wing legislation.
Yes, he did.
Repealing Glass-Steagall and NAFTA and So, are there, what else would you say on Contract for American Renewal or candidates with the contract, the anti-corruption contract? Are there certain things on there that stand out to you?
I love the anti-corruption contract. I thought it was brilliantly written, and it hit every key point. Congressional salaries, I'm glad it zeroed in on those, where the mean income for the United States is $55,000 and a congressperson makes 174,000 a year. We're turning people. When they go to Washington, they kind of become wealthy, and then they come out and become lobbyists, which the contract addresses too. You got to wait 7 years. So I think that's a great provision too. So everything in there, I just thought was brilliant and well needed. Now to get it done, as you know, that's another matter. We have to have a lot of like-minded people to pass much of that. But I'm optimistic. I really am. I think
we get enough people like yourself in the office there, Paul, and we can get this done.
Yes, we can. I agree with you, Brian. I'm optimistic. I think we can get it done. We're too good of a country not to get it done. I really think we are.
Absolutely.
And it could be too self-serving or plebeian, but I really think that we're the best country that's ever existed, and we have a long way to go. We can change this world to be a paradise if we'll put our minds to it. I really think so.
I think we have the greatest potential of any country on earth. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and talking to all of the candidates we've gotten to talk to has been so like uplifting, because the news is depressing. Well, I mostly don't watch it, but there's a lot of not good news, but I'm always inspired every time I meet a candidate like yourself, and it's very similar message from everyone. And that also just tells me that that's really what people want in the country. That you guys are all representing really that big shift, that big change. But obviously, the powers that be are going to fight it as much as they possibly can. Sure. Yeah, we're in, I guess, maybe late stage capitalism, as Chris Hedges says.
Right, and it gets ugly in that stage.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty.
It sure does.
It's not going to be pretty. Okay, well, I guess we will not keep you too much longer. We're at the hour mark, but it was fantastic to meet you. And
really good to meet you, Paul.
Good to meet you too. And look at you two. You're examples. You're doing a great service for this country. And think of all the people tomorrow morning that'll get up and go to their job and do what they're supposed to do and keeps the wheels running, and all the services we get from all these people at hospitals. I mean, it's just a wonderful country, a wonderful world. So,
it is.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us, Paul.
Thanks for joining us, Paul.
All right.
My pleasure.
Okay. Let's see here. We'll stop here.